Good evening, and welcome to the Haldimand Norfolk Federal Election All Candidates Debate, live from the Lions Community Center in Caledonia, brought to you tonight by the Haldimand Press and Windecker Road Films, and thanks to our sponsors, the Cornerstone Association of Realtors and the Caledonia Chamber of Commerce. A big thank you to all of you for joining us here at the Lions Community Center and online at the Haldimand Press's Facebook and YouTube channel. So go ahead, contact all your family, friends, and neighbors, and get as many people in this area as possible to tune in and listen to this expected to be wonderful debate tonight. My name is Connie Smith. I'm delighted to be back in Caledonia this evening to serve as your moderator. You know, events like this are so very important when it comes to your vote and the imperative of being as informed as you possibly can be about the issues at stake, yes, but also getting to know the candidates a little more one-on-one in person as individuals and people. I hope you've had a chance to chat with some of them tonight, and there will be an opportunity following our debate as well. So this is how things are going to play out. To begin, each candidate will have a minute and a half to introduce themselves. Then on to the questions, which have been previously submitted, so there will be no new questions accepted tonight. Each candidate will have a minute and a half to answer each question. Candidates who choose to rebut will be given 30 seconds to rebut, and only one rebut will be allowed. Now, we have over a dozen questions, lots of great questions covering all kinds of things. So candidates, let's try to be as succinct as possible. Candidates will have 3 minutes for closing comments, and let's look forward to a lively debate with reasonable decorum, and I expect nothing less from this wonderful slate of candidates here with us tonight. And that goes for our audience behind me as well. We will begin with the candidate on the far left each time, and then begin with the next candidate over for each subsequent questions. I'd like you to meet Manny, the timekeeper. Manny will let you know when you have 30 seconds left, 10 seconds left, and the final wrap-up. Hopefully you won't hear this. That'll mean you're over time. So, let's meet the candidates. Remember, a minute and a half for your introductions. And we're going to begin with, well, first of all, I'd like to begin with a round of applause for the candidates who are putting their names out there in the name of this country and this community. So thank you all for being here. And here we go with introductions then. Lily Egging with the Christian Heritage Party of Canada will begin with you.
I'm a single mother, business owner, and missionary. Here I am, participating in politics because of my concern for Canadian governance, which has clearly ignored the preamble to the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms, which reads, "Whereas Canada is founded upon principles that recognize the supremacy of God and the rule of law." This preamble is CHP's solid and unchanging foundation. I cannot vote for Pierre. He is for abortion, MAID, and gay marriage. I cannot stand before God beside a party that stands for nothing I believe in. Some will accuse me of splitting the vote, but according to the last election, Leslyn Lewis could lose 12,439 votes and still be reelected. If 12,000 Christians voted according to their beliefs instead of according to their fears, if they voted for a party that shares their values rather than the lesser of two evils, what kind of message would that send to the government? We are not in agreement with the killing of humans of any age, size, or ability. We stand for biblical marriage and two genders as God created them. It would tell the government that we are not afraid because we have a God who is stronger and mightier, and his purpose will stand if only we stand with him. That is the message I will be sending with my vote.
Thank you, Lily Egging. Next, we will begin with Henry Geisler with the PPC Party for your introduction.
Well, thank you very much for having me. Can you hear me? Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Can anyone hear me? Okay.
possibly? Is that better?
Well, let's see. Okay, yes,
Yes,
I can hear
much
something now.
better, Henry.
Well, thank you very much for including me in this event. I wasn't expecting that. I thought I had missed a deadline, and, well, thank you for including me. In Canada, we're facing a crisis now with immigration. And anybody who tells you different, well, I don't know where they're living. But when we have the fastest growing country in the Western world, 5 times faster than the average Western country, and when 98% of that growth comes from new residents, well, that's putting a strain on the system. We can see that in the housing prices. We can see that in our health care. What Maxime Bernier and the People's Party of Canada proposes is a moratorium on new residents. Now, in 2019, when Mr. Bernier proposed a reduction in the number of immigrants, he was called racist and a xenophobe, and now it doesn't seem so crazy. The fact is, he identified the problem before it happened. Now it's happening, and well, in order to do something about it, we propose a moratorium on any new residents and a drastic reduction in the number of temporary residents. Thank you.
Thank you, Henry Geisler. We move on to Nathan Hawkins, Green Party of Canada.
Hi there. I'd just first of all like to thank Caitlin, Mike, Jillian, and the rest of the crew here from the Haldimand Press, as well as the Lions for providing the venue for us. There's not too much to tell. I was born in Brantford, moved out when I was 26 years old to Kitchener for employment purposes, started a family. I grew up mostly in South Brantford, so whenever summer came along, or spring, you'd find me fishing along the Grand River at most of the dams, camping, beaching, cottaging, the regular fare. It's always been a place that's been near and dear to my heart. Lots of great people in this community, and I'd like to have the opportunity on behalf of the Greens to represent you as a MP as well. I'm good. There's not too much, like I said, there's not too much to tell. I've just been a hardworking Canadian all my life. I'm actually recently on disability at the moment, hoping to get back to work in the next couple of months. So I thought, maybe politician would be a good gig for me. You know, family and friends always told me, you know, you get the gift of gab, and I'm relatable, so I just try to be real with people. You probably won't see me reading too much up here, even though I have a platform now. I like to have conversations, not debates. So, yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Nathan Hawkins. Next, Shannon Horner-Shepherd with the New Democratic Party.
Thank you, Connor. I'd just like to echo Nathan's thanks to everyone for hosting this event. I think it's an awesome opportunity for us to get in front of the constituents of the riding from one end to the other and be able to have these open and transparent conversations. I think that's incredibly important in democracy. So just a little bit about myself. I'm a lifelong resident of Haldimand, Norfolk. I've lived here for over 40 years. I've raised my kids here, worked here. I believe that Haldimand, Norfolk deserves fair and authentic representation, which is something that I don't believe we have received lately, and also representation that understands the unique needs of this riding. Agriculture is an important piece of the puzzle here, and I think that it's important when you're dealing with an agriculture background that you have a little bit of that in your blood. A lot of us that have been, especially out Norfolk way, that's where I've spent most of my life, was out in Norfolk, and I grew up on working on the farm, so I understand how important the agriculture is to this riding. So I think that does lend itself a little bit to having some extra experience in here. I'm also a steel worker. I've worked in a steel mill for 27 years. Started out, I work at Stelco out at Nanticoke, so that's kind of my background. I'm also a single mother of 4. One of those children, all my kids are grown adults, but one of my kids does have complex special needs, so I do understand the requirements to have some compassion, some empathy for those in our world. So like Nathan, I'm not a seasoned politician. I'm a hardworking country girl, and I just thought it would be time to have some authentic representation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Shannon Horner-Shepherd. Next, Leslyn Lewis, Conservative Party of Canada.
Thank you, and thank you to the audience for taking the time out of your Easter Monday to be here with us today. Thank you to all the organizers. Canada is at a crossroads, and when you're on a journey and you reach a certain point, you must decide which direction you will go in. The path that the Liberals have taken us down over the last 10 years has been a radical one that has undermined the very foundations of our nation. The last Liberal decade has brought hardship for many Canadians. Canadians are going to food banks in the millions. In Haldimand, Norfolk, despite being the top agricultural producer in the country, we have 1 in 6 individuals experiencing food insecurity. Young people have given up on the dream of ever owning a home. It now takes an income of $208,000 to qualify for a home in Haldimand, Norfolk. Our Conservative government will redirect Canada down a path of prosperity. We will make life more affordable by reducing taxes and eliminating the carbon tax for everyone. We will create safe streets, we will respect our seniors, and we will create a strong economy. I'm a proud resident of Dunnville. My husband, children, and I work in this community, and over the past 4 years, I've been honored to be your member of Parliament, and I look forward to having the privilege to serve you once again.
Thank you, Leslyn Lewis. And last but not least, Colin Walsh, the Liberal Party of Canada.
Good evening. I'm Colin Walsh, and I'm honored to be your Liberal candidate for Haldimand, Norfolk. I've spent the last 12 years teaching, coaching, and raising my family right here with my wife, Lori, and our 2 children. This isn't just where we live, it's where we belong. And that sense of belonging is what drives me to serve. Our community is built on respect, integrity, and care for one another. These values bring us together. And at a time when so many forces, both at home and abroad, are trying to divide us, those values matter more than ever. This election is about more than local issues. It's about who we are as Canadians. Donald Trump is threatening to undermine our sovereignty. He wants access to our critical resources, and he's already working to fracture the international partnerships that keep our economy strong and our borders secure. In the face of that, we need someone who will not only defend Canadian interests, but also protect the spirit of unity and decency that define our communities. I'm not running to climb the ladder in Ottawa. I'm running to stay grounded here, where real people face real challenges. You deserve an MP who shows up, who listens, and who fights for better health care, affordable housing, meaningful jobs, and the future of our farms. Not just during election season, but every weekend, every month, all year round. On April 28th, I'm asking for your trust, not just to speak for you in Parliament, but to stand with you, side by side with honesty, accountability, and a deep commitment to what makes Haldimand, Norfolk strong, our people, our values, and our future.
Thank you, Colin Walsh. Now, we're all friends here, so it's all right if I just address you by your first names? Are we good with that? All right. So, to the questions now. The first question, candidates. What is your vision for the Haldimand Norfolk community, and how would you work to achieve that vision? We begin with Henry.
Vision. All right. Well, besides reducing unnecessary environmental regulations like the carbon tax and other regulations, and eliminating capital gains tax, which will help farmers with succession planning, and reducing Canadian grain commission fees, the PPC vows to reduce federal farm tax from 15 to 10%, maintaining business risk management programs that are self-sustainable, and extending accelerated capital cost allowance rates to agriculture. I think in Haldimand, Norfolk, people have a strong sense of what they're doing, and what they need is the government to support them and not constrain them. And I think Norfolk, the people of Haldimand, Norfolk will do just fine taking care of themselves. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Henry. Nathan.
Feel free to call me Nate, by the way.
Oh, Nate, you
Nate,
got
so
it.
that's fine.
Nate is it.
To echo what Henry touched on there, succession planning seems to be a big concern, with 40% of farmers retiring within the next 10 years with no one to succeed their farms. It seems the youth aren't too interested in farming these days, so the Greens have a plan. It's actually in our platform that we're going to drop or reduce tuition fees for agricultural sector education and healthcare education immediately. That'd be the first step to try to get more youth engaged in these two areas that we need. Also, I'd like to focus on the Great Lakes, Lake Erie in particular. The pollution levels are getting really bad. We see it every summer with the algae blooms, and then now we have the microplastics and plastics issues as well. It's right behind Lake Ontario. It's number 2 of the Great Lakes for contamination right now, and it seems to be getting worse every year. So there is people working on trying to clean it up, but I'd like to see that boosted up for future generations to be able to enjoy everything we got to experience. Thank you.
Thank you, Nate. Shannon.
I do agree with Nate in that we need to start looking at ways to make some sustainable succession planning for farming. As Haldimand is a little closer to an urban center than Norfolk is, I do believe that there's an increase in housing that's been happening in this area. So that sustainable housing hasn't seemed to migrate its way towards Norfolk yet. So I think to be able to ensure that we have a vision going forward is to ensure that we have affordable housing in the entire riding of Haldimand, Norfolk. We also need to look at creating and diversifying the type of employment that we have. Currently, we only have some major manufacturing industry out in Nanticoke area, as I work at the Nanticoke Industrial Park. So we need to look at other ways to diversify. Also bringing tourism in, I think we have a wonderful opportunity to increase the amount of tourism that we have to ensure that, but doing it in a responsible and respectful manner for the entire riding. So I think those things that need to be done, but that also comes when you are in the riding and you understand the needs and the needs of the people in the riding from one end of it to another. So making sure that you're visible, you're seen, and I think that that's how I would then go to ensure that we have a sustainable vision and prosperity in Haldimand, Norfolk going forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Shannon. Leslyn.
My priorities for Haldimand, Norfolk will be continue to focus on the safety, security, and prosperity of the region. The carbon tax must be permanently removed. Right now, the carbon tax is paused. However, it will take an act of Parliament to completely remove the carbon tax. Prior to it being paused, we brought 48 motions before Parliament to have the carbon tax removed, and the Liberals and NDP voted 48 times against that. This will be a priority for me. I will continue to make life more affordable for the residents of Haldimand, Norfolk, so that they will not have to choose between heating their homes and eating. I will also advocate and support our platform to cut income tax by 15%, which will put an extra $1,800 a year in the average family's pocket. I will continue to stand up for hunters, farmers, and law-abiding firearms owners and focus our attention on criminals so that we can create safe streets. I will uphold respect for our seniors who have built our country, and we will do that by making life more affordable for them and ensuring that the retirement age remains at 65. I will continue to work on protecting the environment, and as I did when I helped to acquire funding for orphan wells. Thank you.
Thank you, Leslyn. Colin.
Life is getting harder for families in Haldimand, Norfolk, whether it's filling up the gas tank, buying groceries, or managing rent and utility bills. The cost of living is cutting deep into household budgets. As your Liberal candidate, I believe the federal government must play an active role in delivering relief and building long-term affordability. We'll continue to build on the national grocery rebate, expand access to $10 a day childcare, and ensure more families qualify for Canada Workers' Benefit. We'll fight hidden fees, from bank charges to telecom bills, that add up and disproportionately hurt rural residents. But we must also address the systemic causes of rising prices. That means investing in domestic manufacturing and agriculture so we're less reliant on global supply chains. It also means enforcing stronger competition laws so that large corporations can't inflate prices unchecked. Locally, I'll advocate for a cost of living index tailored to rural communities, ensuring federal benefits match real expenses in regions like ours. Haldimand Norfolk families deserve leadership that understands these pressures and delivers practical solutions. I won't just speak for our region. I'll show up, listen, and fight for the affordability we deserve.
Thank you, Colin. Lily.
So my heart is with the seniors and the marginalized. This is the sleeper issue. Finance Report 21 was presented in December. All 4 parties were represented. Over half were Conservatives. Recommendation 430 will strip all religions of their charitable status by removing the qualification advancement of religion. This revocation of status comes with a tax of 100% of total assets and property. This recommendation that promises to financially ruin all religions in Canada within 1 year passed through the committee without objections. Conservatives had concerns with other recommendations but said nothing about financially ruining every religion in Canada. If an election had not been called, this could have been passed into the budget by now. The Conservative Party chose not to warn anyone. Why did they not sound the alarm? What does this have to do with the marginalized? Religious organizations provide pregnancy centers, treatment centers, counseling, mental health services, childcare, refugee sponsorship, food banks, soup kitchens, shelters, home visits, community events. Do I need to continue? What are the marginalized to do without these supports? I can tell you what, because it's already happening. The government is promoting MAID to them as if death is the best option for them. If the government takes away all their support, it leaves them with no choice but to comply with the death agenda. But hey, it'll save on health care.
Thank you, Lily. We'll move on to our next question. Housing continues to be at the top of all Canadians' minds. What can the federal government do to help decrease supply issues across Canada's housing continuum amid this housing crisis? And if elected, what specific measures will your party focus on? Nate, we begin with you this time.
I'm just going to go off the top of my head, like I said at the beginning. I know that we need to start stockpiling our resources, especially on softwood lumber. This will help bring down the price of new homes. The Greens also have a plan to invest in modular homes and prefab homes for quicker builds. We'd also like to cut through a bunch of red tape. It's been working in municipalities where I am in Kitchener. It's worked on I believe it's 25-story high-rise that both provincial government and the municipality got together. They cut through the red tape. They built this building in a year. It looks great. It's the way to go. We're seeing too many developers come around with all these grandeur projects that no one's going to really be able to afford. We really need to look at that. So I'm going to stick with we need to make sure we keep our resources here and pay at price, and we're good to go. Start building. Get some workers out there. Let's go. Thank you.
Thank you, Nate. And Shannon.
When we talk about housing, I think we need to understand that this is not a new issue. This housing crisis that we have has been going on for well over 30, 40 years. In 1984, I think we started to see social housing cuts and cuts to affordable housing happening, and that was by the Conservative government. But then, you know, it's just been a constant back and forth between the Conservatives and the Liberals since then. So this is not something that has just happened in the last, let's say, 3 to 5 years. It's not because of immigration. This has been a constant declination in what is affordable housing in the country. And I think one of the things that we need to do is really focus on making affordable housing, tax cuts and offering cuts to people in houses, new build homes. Most of us can't afford a new build home. I've never lived in a new built home in my entire life. I would never be able to afford one, especially when we're talking in numbers of $1.2 million. So ensuring that housing is done, and it's done affordably, but it's also done responsibly, to ensure that we're not infringing on the green space that we have and plopping down housing developments in places where we are just, like, we've got one talking about an MZO happening outside of Stelco. I'm pretty certain that if the most average person doesn't want to live right beside a steel mill or a refinery. So when we're talking about housing, we need to make it affordable, we need to make it accessible, and we need to ensure that the people that are going to be living in these homes can sustain themselves in those homes. Thank you.
Thank you, Shannon. Leslyn.
Conservatives believe that development should be done responsibly, which means that you have to have the infrastructural capacity to sustain new homes. And that means that you do not displace farmers in order to build these new homes. After 10 years of the Liberal government, owning a home has become out of reach for many Canadians. In Haldimand, Norfolk, the average household income that's required to purchase a home is $208,000. Conservatives believe that one of the most important things that we could do is to get rid of the carbon tax, because that is bringing up the cost of building altogether and repairing the homes. We also will implement a new homes rebate of up to 1.3 million sales tax to no federal tax for new homes up to 1.3 million, and that will save tens of thousands of dollars to many new home buyers. We also believe in balancing growth with protecting agricultural development.
Thank you, Leslie. Colin.
Housing affordability is one of the biggest concerns in our community. Families are being priced out, young people can't find a path to ownership, and even rentals are becoming harder to secure. As your Liberal candidate, I believe every Canadian deserves a safe, secure, and affordable place to call home. We'll remove the GST on the construction of new rental apartment buildings and work with municipalities to fast-track housing development in areas like Haldimand, Norfolk. We'll invest in public infrastructure like roads, water systems, and transit to make it easier and more attractive to build. We're also introducing the Canadian Renters' Bill of Rights to protect tenants and ensure fair treatment in the housing market. And for first-time homebuyers, we'll reintroduce 30-year amortization for insured mortgages on new builds. I will advocate for rural-specific housing investments and affordable housing partnerships with local builders and co-ops. Everyone from seniors to students, from farmers to newcomers, deserve a place to live in the community they call home.
Thank you, Colin. Lily.
Owning a home is a high priority for most Canadians. To many, this goal is impossible. Often both parents need to work to afford a house. This causes increased stress and transportation costs, reduced quality family time, and increased outside influence on child development. Broken homes add to the demand for housing, as one family now maintains 2 homes. Homelessness is not the same as houselessness. In many places, there are unused houses. In the Jarvis area alone, 20 farmhouses sit empty and have for years. In the cities, there's many foreign-owned buildings that are empty. The CHP would reduce or eliminate the foreign purchases of homes, businesses, and farmland. We would reduce the demand for new housing by dramatically reducing levels of immigration, refugees, foreign student visas. We cannot build houses fast enough to accommodate the millions who have been crossing our borders, both legally and illegally. The CHP will attack the other causes of inflation that have raised the price of everything, including housing. By scrapping the carbon tax and implementing mandatory balanced budgets, the CHP will reduce the economic barriers to home ownership and affordable rent.
Thank you, Lily. And Henry.
There are 2 sides of the housing crisis equation. There's supply and there's demand. The federal government has the exclusive control of the demand side of the equation. Again, as I said in my opening remarks, in 2019, Maxime Bernier recognized the problem with the increasing levels of immigration, and he called for a reduction in it. In 2023, there were 472,000 immigrants and 805,000 non-permanent residents coming into the country. That's almost 1.3 million foreign people. That's the population of Saskatchewan. There's no way we can maintain the infrastructure of our system with this kind of pressure. Again, a moratorium on new residents under this housing market, until this housing market has cooled down, and the ill effects of mass migration has been neutralized, and then we can return to a more normal level of immigration that's something like 100 to 150,000 immigrants per year.
Thank you, Henry. And Nate.
I'd like to rebut. Ms. Lewis, I'm just curious. The 15% tax off of the new homes, is that one home only? And or if it's not, is that open to corporate buyers or out-of-country buyers? Because I just fear that it'd open up the door for someone to go in and buy a whole bunch of homes, and then we end up right back where we were. Just wondering.
You have 30 seconds, Leslyn.
I didn't know that we were asking each other questions.
We'll consider it a rebuttal.
Oh, okay. Well, the plan is online of our leader's plan. You're welcome to go there and read it and find out the details about it. But it is, my understanding, it is based on individual purchases.
All right, thank you. Yes, rebuttals are allowed for 30 seconds. Did you have a rebuttal?
Changing the format. A rebuttal, a rebuttal is a response to something that someone has said. It is not an interrogation of another person. So if we're changing the format, I would like to know that.
I think we'll just change from a question to a statement. And if you were to make it a statement from now on, then we can make it a clear rebuttal. Are we good with that?
You know what? I'll withhold. I'll just save it for another time.
All right. Okay. Next we have Shannon.
No.
Oh, you're fine then. Okay, great. Question number 3, which we will begin with you, Shannon. With Canada experiencing its first decline in employment since 2022 and ongoing tariffs, particularly those imposed by the Trump administration, contributing to economic uncertainty, what is your party's plan to support Canadians who lose their jobs and to protect the broader economy from the impact of these tariffs? Beginning with you, Shannon.
It's a very big question, quite honestly. So I think everybody knows that the New Democratic Party has always been the ones that have been fighting to ensure that we have employment insurance reform. That has been something that we have always done. We've always been the ones that have made sure that we have a social safety net that's in place that's going to protect all Canadians. That's been the basis of our platform for decades. So when we're talking about how we're going to ensure that as these tariffs are coming in, we've seen the layoffs happening. Stellantis just had some layoffs. I know there's been some mass layoffs already happening in the United States. What we need is people in the House of Commons that are going to hold those that seem to be having a wonderful relationship with the gentleman down south. And I think Pierre Poilievre he even congratulated Mr. Trump on his winning the election. So I think when we're talking about making sure that we have people that are holding those in power accountable, the NDP are always going to do that. So we're going to increase the social safety net by increasing affordable housing. We're going to make sure that we're doing employment insurance reform to protect those jobs. And when we're talking about tariffs, I think that when we talk about making sure that the tit-for-tat tariffs are going to the workers and not just going to the big corporations. Thank you.
Thank you, Shannon. Leslyn.
An important part of standing up to President Trump's tariffs is to make sure that we focus on protecting Canadians and strengthening our economy. Tariffs obviously will hurt both sides, and what we need to do is to ensure that our workers here are protected. And as such, Conservatives will be launching a Keep Canadians Working Fund, which will provide temporary loans and relief to make sure that people keep employed. We will also accelerate the CUSMA negotiations, the free trade negotiations, to focus on ensuring that we are keeping our workforce vibrant. We also believe that we need to focus immediately on rebuilding our economy to promote self-reliance. Canada has all the resources, has everything that we need to be self-sufficient and for us to rebound and to take on these tariff threats head on. And so we need to focus on getting our products to market, helping our farmers, optimizing our potential, getting our resources to Tidewater, selling our resources abroad, getting our liquefied natural gas sold overseas, and making sure that we're building a strong and vibrant economy.
Thank you, Leslyn. Colin?
So, creating good-paying jobs, secure jobs in Haldimand, Norfolk means investing in the sectors that define us. Agriculture, green energy, manufacturing, healthcare, and skilled trades. It also means building the infrastructure that attracts employers to rural Ontario. We'll grow the Canada Jobs and Growth Fund and provide direct investment to small and mid-sized businesses to modernize, expand, and hire. We'll also fund new clean energy and food processing projects that provide high-quality jobs right here in our region. I'll work to ensure Haldimand Norfolk gets its fair share of federal infrastructure and job creation programs, because a thriving economy starts with strong local middle-class jobs and leadership that brings those opportunities home.
Thank you, Colin. Lily?
So a lot of people don't understand how tariffs work. The U.S. tariffs are costing Americans money, not Canadians. It does affect Canadian businesses that sell to the U.S. since they will be more inclined to buy U.S. goods, but that will encourage Canadian businesses to stay local as well. If we put a tariff on U.S. goods, we pay that tariff to the government, not to the businesses. Due to the relative size of our economies, we cannot win a trade war with the U.S. We need their goods more than they need ours, and a trade war will make future negotiations more difficult. The original reason for the tariffs was the passage through Canada of fentanyl and potential terrorists. This is valid criticism. We need to improve our port and border security, not only to remove tariffs, but also to protect Canada. The Prime Minister offered to spend a feeble $1.3 billion on the border. That's less than we spend in 1 week on the national debt. These tariffs would be less concerning if Canada were not $1.2 trillion in debt. The CHP would improve our border security, strictly enforce drug laws, encourage Canadian manufacturing, remove barriers to interprovincial trade, and introduce mandatory balanced budgets. Then we would negotiate in good faith with the U.S. from a strong economic position.
Thank you, Lily. Henry?
Inflation is what is putting a strain on our, pardon me, sorry. Inflation is what's putting a strain on our social safety net. And it's come about from the obscene spending practices of the Liberal government and the Conservative government before that. The PPC plans to balance the budget in 1 year, and that can be done by cutting such things as foreign aid, $10 billion, corporate welfare, $25 billion, funding to the media, $2 billion, reducing equalization payments to $13 billion cut out of that, and cut the aid to Ukraine in $5 billion. That will allow us to balance the budget. That will bring down inflation. Any surpluses that the government would come to would be put back into tax relief for ordinary people, and that's where you will get your relief from the inflation. Thank you.
Thank you, Henry. And Nate?
Our employment and labor policies focus on making sure every worker in Canada has fair wages and job security. We'll actively protect and strengthen workers' rights to unionize, make sure collective bargaining agreements help secure fair pay, safer workplaces, and better working conditions. We'll enforce pay equity, to crack down on gig economy exploitation, boost protections against workplace abuse as workplaces change. We'll also introduce rules for jobs affected by AI and automation. Some of these, we need to ensure a livable wage. The Greens are also looking at a guaranteed livable income for Canadian workers that make under $100,000 a year. So we're trying to do our best for workers that are going to be affected by the tariffs put on us by the administration down south. We'll get through this. It's going to take some time, but hopefully the tariffs are a thing that disappears sooner than later. Thank you.
Thank you, Nate. Our next question concerns the potential. Oh, sorry. Rebuttal, Shannon. Yes, 30 seconds.
Curious, how much of the cuts to funding will come from healthcare and social services if we're going to balance the budget in less than a year, Henry?
We're not asking questions.
Okay.
If it's a statement, you
Okay.
can comment on a statement.
Statement,
Okay? All right. Next question is about the potential use of the notwithstanding clause of the Canadian Charter. This would allow a law to override certain charter rights. In what instances would you find it appropriate to use the notwithstanding clause, and what are the implications of doing so? Leslyn, you begin.
Well, the notwithstanding clause is a blunt force legal instrument that should only be used in situations where that are deemed extremely necessary. We have a separation of powers in this country, and the separation of powers shows the respect for the judiciary. And so the legislature is different from the judiciary. Me, as a member of parliament, being a part of the legislature, we pass laws and then we look to the judiciary to enforce them. So the notwithstanding clause would only be used, as I said, it's a blunt force instrument that would be used in extremely rare situations that, and I think it should be used in a very limited course.
All right. Thank you, Leslyn. Colin.
I think where the notwithstanding clause shouldn't be used, I think it's a slippery slope. It gives opportunities to override basic charter and rights and freedoms. It overrides judicial courts. It's just one of these slopes I don't think we can even go down. My leadership is rooted in presence, humility, and service. I've taught in many corners of this riding, raised family, and built relationships across our community, and I believe that we need to show up, we need to be here, and we need to represent our community. And the notwithstanding clause, I don't think, allows to represent those in marginalized scenarios or those in, because it is a slippery slope, and it's something we just can't go down.
All right. Thank you, Colin. Lily.
I do not know something that will not be asked. The CHP is the only federal party with a policy of protecting human life from conception. Abortion is the deliberate taking of innocent human life. There are approximately 100,000 Canadians aborted each year. 60,000 of these abortions are the result of coercion, not free choice. Abortion is not a charter-protected right. Canada has no laws on abortion. The CHP believes abortion should be defunded, not defended. Abortion is a violation of God's law against the killing of the innocent and a violation of women who have been told their baby is only a cluster of cells or tissue. The CHP would provide counseling for all unplanned pregnancies. The mothers would be taught of in utero development and the health hazards of abortion. They would also be offered assistance and support during pregnancy. Thank you.
Thank you, Lily. Henry.
Yes, the notwithstanding clause is really a leader's question, and it is a pity that Maxime Bernier was disallowed in the leaders' debate. I don't know how that can be justified, but perhaps he could have been asked that at that time.
All right. Thank you. You're finished? Yes?
Yeah.
All right. Nate.
On this one, just like MZOs, the notwithstanding clause, I'm not a fan, would not recommend. Thank you.
Thank you, Nate. Shannon.
I'm going to have to probably follow up with Nate's response there. I'm going to say, notwithstanding, the clause is not something that I am that I have much information about, and I'm not going to even try and argue with the lawyer that's sitting beside me here. So I do know that the party is against using the use of the notwithstanding clause, and I will reiterate some of the information that Colin said. I think it is a very slippery slope when we start going down that. So that's mine on that one.
All right, thank you. We're on to the next question. Tensions between First Nations communities and the federal government remain a persistent and deeply rooted issue here in Canada. Here in Haldimand, Norfolk, this has been a particularly complex and frustrating challenge for both residents and our First Nations neighbors. What concrete steps would your party take to move the federal government toward meaningful dialogue and negotiation, address the underlying issues, and help repair the strain this has placed on life in our counties? Colin, we begin with you.
Well, reconciliation isn't a slogan, it's a responsibility. We must act on the Truth and Reconciliation Commission's calls to action and respect Indigenous sovereignty in all that we do. We'll continue investing in Indigenous housing, healthcare, and education. We'll support Indigenous-led language revitalization, clean water infrastructure, and partnerships for land stewardship. In Haldimand, Norfolk, I will build respectful relationships with local Indigenous leaders, including Six Nations and Mississaugas of the Credit. I'll be a consistent, accountable partner, not just during elections, but every day I serve.
Thank you, Colin. Lily?
Canada has unique history, geography, and shared experiences which can unite all jurisdictions and peoples. We oppose attempts to divide our nation. We endorse lasting unity and strength. Treaty claims should be settled fairly, having consideration for both the historic and legal rights of both Aboriginal and non-Aboriginal Canadians. The Indian Act is outdated and should be abolished. The federal government should commit to recognition of prior occupancy by First Peoples, restitution as appropriate, reconciliation leading to full participation in Canadian society for all Canadians. All Canadians, including Indigenous peoples, must have equal rights to own property, run for office, and vote. Each of us shares the responsibility of stewarding our land, water, natural resources. We must have decision-making processes that give equal voice to all citizens where they reside.
Henry?
The People's Party of Canada recognizes First Nations and Inuit and Métis as legitimate First Nations, but we advocate for the abolition of the Indian Act, as Jean Chrétien, I believe, said in 1968 it was a racist document, a racist act. So we would abolish that and renegotiate with the First Nations, all things.
Thank you. Nate?
Most of what I was going to say was already said up here, so I'll be quick with this one as well. The Green Party has 29 Indigenous candidates in this election, which is more than all the major parties combined. So we know where we stand on Indigenous issues and rights. I'm just going to say miigwech.
All right. Thank you, Nate. Just a quick reminder to candidates to speak up to the microphone. Some people online are struggling to hear you clearly. So just if you could enunciate and project a little more for the sake of our audience online. Thank you. Shannon?
So it's also no secret that the New Democratic Party believes that the relationship with the Indigenous peoples of this land are of utmost importance. We have conversations, and they need to be included in the conversations when we're talking about housing, when we're talking about how we're going to bring in new jobs in manufacturing. We have to respect the land. It was theirs first. We are settlers here. So to be able to have those open and honest conversations with respect across the board is what needs to happen. It's no, we know there's been a Truth and Reconciliation, and only 13 of those 94 recommendations have been put into place. And the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People is law, but yet many Indigenous people are still living with boil water advisories and not access to good health care. So I think we need to ensure that when we're having those conversations that we respect the land, we respect the people who are the stewards of this land prior to us getting here. And I think that needs to have an open, honest conversation. And Haldimand Norfolk is such a diverse riding that those conversations need to be at the forefront of all the conversations that happen. Thank you.
Thank you, Shannon. And finally, on this question, Leslyn.
Committed to reconciliation with the Indigenous peoples, working diligently and faithfully with genuine hope of reconciliation, and providing tangible solutions such as essential clean water, electricity, housing, creating resource development opportunities and enterprises to eradicate poverty on the reserves. To this day, there are still long-term boiling water advisories on many reserves. Fortunately, the Six Nations Reserve is not under drinking water advisory, but there are still concerns about the safety and the reliability of the water supply. We need to find solutions to secure clean water supply for First Nations people. Reconciliation should not be a photo op. We should have tangible results that measure health outcomes, economic independence, safety, security, clean water, decent housing, and opportunity. This prolonged state also of tension, of conflict within this community is not good for the Indigenous communities, and it's not good for the residents of Caledonia. All parties need to come to the table, listen to each other in good faith, and resolve the conflict.
Thank you, Leslyn. On to healthcare for our next question. Even though it generally falls under the provincial government purview, many Canadians are still looking to the federal government to assist with issues like the ongoing national shortage of doctors and healthcare workers. What specific steps would your party take to strengthen Canada's healthcare? And we begin with Lily this time.
Canadians find themselves waiting in line, sometimes for long periods, often for urgently required procedures. Meanwhile, precious healthcare dollars are being squandered on elective abortion, which is not healthcare and kills at least one person every time, and on elective gender reassignment surgery, which permanently sterilizes the individual and calls for a lifetime of expensive and damaging hormone treatments. These procedures often lead to regret, depression, and suicide, putting further pressure on healthcare dollars. And of course, they do not actually alter a person's gender, they only impair natural function. Canadians should not be forced to subsidize elective procedures chosen by others, especially those with which they have deep moral concerns. When new hospitals are built, they should be constructed with a greater emphasis on private rooms and other features designed to prevent the unnecessary spread of disease. Mental illness is an increasing problem and needs appropriate treatment. The unleashing of legally available marijuana and other harmful drugs, and the failed policies of government-supervised injection sites have undoubtedly increased the incidence of mental illness, drug addiction, and suicide. We need to provide proper care for the mentally ill and stop relying on harmful drugs as a solution. Canada also needs to rehire and compensate doctors and nurses fired for refusing experimental vaccines, and we need to speed up the process of certifying foreign-born doctors.
Thank you, Lily. Henry.
Canada is for empowering the provincial governments. As you rightly said, healthcare is a provincial domain, and that being said, I don't see any reason why the federal government shouldn't, cooperate with the provincial governments if they have ideas that will help. I can't see why that wouldn't be, why that would be a problem. But the main thing we can do, the main thing the federal government can do, is to stop putting pressure on the system, stop importing so many people. Thank you.
Thank you, Henry. Nate.
I already touched on this a bit earlier with the tuitions. We remove the tuitions or lower the tuitions off anything in the healthcare sector. That'd be a good way to start getting the youth into the field a little bit quicker. Plus, we'd also like to work on some kind of format to get foreign professionals with credentials into the healthcare professions quicker, instead of it being 6 to 9 years when they've already been trained in another country. So there should be a way we can streamline this. Also, having a son with autism, mental health care is health care in my opinion, so I know the Green Party would like to fully integrate that in with our health care so that people with mental health issues aren't paying so much money for their prescriptions as well. Thank you. That's about it.
Thank you, Nate. Shannon?
Well, I, for one, am very proud to be a candidate for a party that has always put health care at the forefront of their platform. Ever since our inception, that's been our belief that universal health care, universal pharmacare, and universal dental care is every Canadian's right. So I don't think if anybody doesn't know that already, we were the ones who ensured, and that's one of the reasons why we need new Democratic candidates in the House of Commons, is to ensure that when we start talking about things like dental care, that we get that to the forefront and we hold those people accountable, such as the Liberals, to ensure we get that through. Now, I know the Liberals are going to say that this was their idea. We can all go back in the history books and we can talk about this for decades. This has always been a platform issue that the New Democrats have always campaigned on. So it's something that I know for sure is our main priority. Ensuring that everyone has access to health care should be the priority of every Canadian, because unless we have our health, we have nothing. And that's something that I think is I would speak very passionately about. I, too, am a mother of a young adult with complex special needs, so I know how important that healthcare system is. And when we live in a riding where we're out of the catchment area for all the services that my daughter requires as she lives her best life, making drives to Toronto, making drives to Hamilton all the time, I think it's important that we ensure that healthcare is at the forefront of all of our minds when we're talking in this election, and ensuring that we elect people who will hold those in power accountable to ensure our healthcare is maintained and looked after. Thank you.
Thank you, Shannon. Leslyn?
Our healthcare system is suffering. Canada currently spends more on servicing the interest on our debt than we transfer to the provinces in healthcare transfer. We have a $1.3 trillion debt, and our interest payments are stifling us to the point where we're spending more on that than we're spending on healthcare. We have also a massive shortage in healthcare professionals. Last year, Dr. Robinson in this community was retiring, and she spent years trying to find a replacement. 2,000 people in Caledonia were going to be without a family doctor. It literally took me, before question period, walking over to the Minister of Immigration and sending him a letter, giving him a letter, outlining what a grave situation this is. We need to be able to attract more healthcare professionals in this country and retain them. And that is why Conservatives are bringing in the Blue Seal certification program, which will make it easier for doctors and healthcare professionals to move between provinces. It will make it easier to attract and retain healthcare professionals. And Conservatives will restore the high-quality healthcare system that we once had. Thank you.
Thank you, Leslyn. And Colin?
Access to health care shouldn't depend on your postal code. In Haldimand, Norfolk, we have dedicated professionals, but not enough of them. And people are waiting too long or traveling too far for basic care. We'll increase federal health transfers with strings attached to ensure funds are tied to measurable improvements. That includes hiring more family doctors, nurses, and mental health professionals in our communities. We'll expand programs like the Rural and Remote Physician Incentive and provide student loan forgiveness for healthcare professionals who work in rural areas. We'll also invest in mobile clinics and community health teams to reach people where they are. I'll fight for rural-specific funding for walk-in clinics, long-term care, and preventative care in Haldimand, Norfolk. Healthcare is a right, not a luxury, and that right must be accessible here at home.
Thank you, Colin. just a timely reminder to everyone in the audience to make sure their phones are off. And I know sometimes it's by accident, but just a quick reminder to check yours to make sure. Thank you. Moving on to the next question, candidates. If your party is proposing to cut a tax, what taxes would you cut? And how will you make up for that lost revenue while ensuring needs are still met for infrastructure, defense, education, housing, and so on? In this round, we begin with Henry.
That's simple. You eliminate the waste. You stop sending your money overseas, and you stop spending it on promoting ideologies that have no basis in fact, and you spend it on what you need to. So you don't waste, you balance your budget, and then you have the money to do what you need to do. It's that simple.
All right. Thank you, Henry. Moving on to Nate.
We need fair taxation in Canada. That's the bottom line. We need to go after the wealthier corporations out there. We could increase the corporate tax rate from 14 to 21% for businesses with profits over $100 million, or 44 billion in revenue. We're also looking at implementing a 0.2 financial transaction tax, or Tobin tax, on trades involving stocks, bonds, derivatives, and currencies. This measure will help curb speculative trading practices that destabilize markets, generate significant revenue for social and economic environmental programs. We estimate this would bring back in about $54 billion a year for the Canadian Treasury. So that's good.
Thank you, Nate. Shannon.
The NDP have always stood firm in the fact that they believe that the tax cuts need to go to the wealthy. Anybody who's making millions of dollars, it was at $100 million, tax cuts need to come there. If we took 2% tax cut from our billionaires and redispersed it, then the middle class, because we talk about tax cuts, but I don't know, I heard my friend to the left of me here reference $1,800 for a 15% income tax cut for the middle class. I don't know if you disperse that over 12 months, $1,800 doesn't seem like much of a money in my pocket, in my opinion. It's pretty much a meal at McDonald's now for a family of 4, so once a month. But I mean, getting the taxation and making the wealthy pay their fair share. That's important to us. That's something that the NDP have always ran on as a platform. And that's something that we'll continue to run on a platform. And that's why we need to have people ensuring that the tax breaks aren't going to the wealthy, the corporate, corporations that are making more money, such as our grocery store chains and these billionaires that are buying up all this housing, affordable housing, and turning it into using their corporate greed to just line their own pockets. So taxing the wealthy, that's what the NDP are looking to do and have always looked to do.
Thank you, Shannon. Leslyn.
The main tax that Conservatives would cut is the carbon tax, and we believe that that has the biggest impact on all citizens. The environment, we should strive to try to protect the environment, but we have to have alternatives. When you're punishing farmers who have no alternative to drying their crops, they have no alternative, but yet they are still paying that carbon tax. We have to change behavior through the environment with incentives rather than punishing people who have no alternatives. In rural communities, we have to use our cars, and so we're actually being punished through the carbon tax. How would I fund the shortfall, finding efficiencies. We have a lot of government waste. We need to stop handing out multi-million dollar and sometimes billion-dollar contracts to political insiders who are wasting taxpayers' money. We need to ensure that things such as the Green Slush Fund, whereby political insiders are getting $100 million contracts, we need to put an end to that. And we need to ensure that average people are not suffering because they have to eat and heat their homes.
Thank you, Leslyn. Colin.
Well, inflation has made everyday in everyday life feel like a balancing act, from gas and groceries to interest rates and rent, families under stress. While inflation is a global issue, federal policy can provide real and immediate support. We'll start by expanding targeted benefits that put money directly into into people's pockets: the GST credit, the Canada Workers Benefit, and the Canada Child Benefit. These supports are tax-free, tied to income, and help those who need it most. We'll also address structural causes of inflation by investing in domestic manufacturing, agriculture, and energy. This reduces our exposure to supply shocks and improves price stability. By strengthening our supply chains and supporting rural producers, we also keep more wealth circulating locally. Additionally, we'll improve competition in key sectors like banking, telecom, and groceries to stop monopolies from driving up prices. And I'll advocate for a permanent rural affordability framework that ensures government programs reflect real-world costs in communities like ours.
Thank you, Colin. And audience behind me, just a quick reminder, we love your energy and your enthusiasm, but if we could just give our attention to each speaker without any comments from the gallery, that would be very much appreciated. Thank you. Lily, to you now.
So the CHP does not agree with taxing the wealthy. Why should you be penalized for working harder and longer hours? Why should I pay more tax if I want to put in overtime? That is not right.
Can you pick up your microphone, please, Lily? Thank you.
Sure. Would you like me to start over?
Yes, thank you.
So why should the wealthy be taxed more? The government should not penalize people for working harder or longer. Putting in overtime should not mean more money for the government. The CHP would do away with the income tax and replace that needed revenue with a national sales tax on purchases known as the fair tax. The more you spend, the more taxes you pay. With no income tax, Canadians would have a lot more money to save, invest, and spend. Canadians could control how much tax they pay by controlling their spending. The other tax we would get rid of is the carbon tax, which has been paused. We object to it on several grounds. CO2 is not a pollution. Canadians need to recognize that carbon dioxide is beneficial to crops and forestry. It enhances photosynthesis, increases leaf area, plant branch, fruit numbers, water use efficiency, biological nitrogen fixation, and the ability to adapt to environmental stresses such as poor soil, weeds, insects, disease, and drought. The financial benefit of increasing CO2 is also enormous. Of 45 crops examined, every crop had an increase of at least $1 billion.
Thank you, Lily. Now, on to our next question. Oh, rebuttal? Yes, Colin. Yes, sorry.
So Mr. Carney paused the tax and will be eliminating the tax when Parliament is back in session, which he's promised. And a man's word in this community means something. A person's word means something. And Mr. Carney gave his word.
All right. Thank you for that. We move on to our next question, and a reminder to our audience, your full attention on our candidates as they speak, if you please. Our next question. Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, listen.
For clarity, Mr. Carney said that he will be imposing the industrial carbon tax. So he may eliminate the consumer carbon tax, but the industrial carbon tax will still be in place, which means that everything will still trickle down to consumers. There were 48 motions brought, and 48 times the Liberals voted against eliminating the carbon tax. They are only pausing the carbon tax now because they will lose the election, and they realize that. It is not done out of any form of altruism.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Now, moving to question number 8. As it happens, how would you use your platform to engage the youth of Haldimand, Norfolk in the democratic process? This round, we begin with Nathan.
I'm not going to read. More youth development programs would be good. I think it all comes down to school. Like for the agriculture stuff, I've said before, I'd like to. I remember going to school and going on trips to farms. I don't see that really happening anymore. We need to get our youth engaged in community. I see there's some young folk in the crowd here today, which is awesome. They're getting to hear us all blabber on up here. And I'm sure they really enjoy it. But it's a question I wasn't really prepared for. But you know, having 5 kids between me and my current wife, I really, you know, our children are our future. So we got to protect them, and we got to make sure that they're knowledgeable about life, other than being influencers and tech jobs. They need to start experiencing some real life scenarios out there. Thank you.
Thank you, Nate. Shannon.
Well, I think the NDP has always done a really good job in trying to engage the youth. I think one of the things when we're talking about engaging the youth, especially in Haldimand, Norfolk, because it is such a diverse riding, that we have to look at the urbanization. We don't have the infrastructure in place. A lot of younger people are moving to the area, are not able to move out of the area strictly because of housing, so they're living with their parents. I know for one, I have 4 kids that live in my house, adult children. The chances of them being able to afford a home anytime in the near future is pretty slim to nil. So one of the things we need to do is to give them some hope as to where that affordability is going to come from. And increasing affordable housing is important. Ensuring that they have health care, because that's one of the things. The youth are struggling right now because they don't have access to affordable health care or any health care unless they have a job that has benefits. So getting the dental care in there for the under 25 was very important, because if you don't have access to benefits, and unfortunately we're seeing this migration to a 2-tier system so that those who can afford to have health care. So giving the youth the ability to ensure they're looking after their health, also improving the access to mental health services for our rural riding is really important. There's an incredible increase in mental health needs in this riding. So I think increasing mental health access, healthcare access, affordable housing access, those are all the fundamentals of the NDP platform. That's how we're going to get the youth engaged.
Thank you, Shannon. Leslie.
Engaging the youth have always been a very, very important part of my career. As a lawyer, I always took on co-op students and made sure that I was there to mentor and guide young people into the legal profession. As a member of Parliament, I feel very fortunate and blessed also. I have one position in the office that I always leave secured for a summer program to train youth. I'm also very lucky to be able to engage youth through emails and also pen pals. Also, many youth in this community write to me about environmental issues, various issues in the class, and I have the opportunity of sitting down and responding to each and every letter, and that is very, very meaningful to me, and it's very impactful because many of them have written back to me and have told me how much it has meant for them to receive a letter from their member of parliament and it to be specific to what their needs are. I also think that advocating for apprenticeship programs and training programs are very, very important in the community. Young people need those summer jobs, those minimum wage jobs. That's important. And we have to make sure that it's not just university students that are getting those jobs, that there are entry-level jobs for students to learn the value of work.
Thank you, Leslyn. And Colin.
Well, this is something I'm very familiar with, as I do teach grade 7, 8 French immersion. So I'm dealing with youth all the time. Young people are passionate, they're informed, and ready to lead, but they're often excluded from decision making. I'll establish a Haldimand Norfolk Youth Council that will meet regularly to shape policy priorities and advise on local initiatives. Federally, we'll continue to support youth programming and civic education that prepares the next generation to lead. Young people deserve more than a seat at the table. They deserve to help shape the table itself. My door is always open to them. But it's not enough to talk about surviving. We need to talk about thriving. We'll help young people build wealth through access to the first home savings account, micro loans for entrepreneurs, and expanded funding for trades and co-op education. We'll create pathways for public service jobs in rural areas and offer incentives for students who stay and work in their communities. Locally, I'll advocate for rural financial literacy programs and startup incubators, so our youth have both the knowledge and tools to build a future right here. When rural youth succeed, our whole community succeeds.
Thank you, Colin. Lily.
I think youth are jaded by the democratic process. They see the wasted votes that don't count due to the current first-past-the-post system, which often results in the election of individual MPs or even parties who receive votes from less than half the eligible voters. Thus, the governments in power are often the result of people voting against a party or for candidates and parties they don't necessarily really like, but whom they consider the lesser of two evils or the more likely to win. For this reason, the CHP has long favored some form of proportional representation whereby every party would achieve a percentage of seats in Parliament roughly equal to the percentage of votes received. Proportional representation has some problems of its own. There are a number of variations of it, each of them attempting to resolve the issues. No system is perfect. The biggest challenge for Christians is that our Western society as a whole has abandoned the Christian principles that made it great: freedom of speech, respect for life, respect for the Creator, and the rule of law. CHP supports some form of proportional representation. Some members are also suggesting other forms of electoral reform, such as preferential ballot, allowing voters to rank the candidates in order of preference. All these systems should be looked at.
Thank you, Lily. And Henry.
Although the issues, I would argue, are fundamentally simple, the challenges that we're facing, I find the youth today are more swayed by left-leaning ideologies that tend to confuse things. Certainly answering youth's letters, well, who's kidding who, emails, is only right, and I've done that too. I wouldn't agree that we should have the youth shape the policy of the political parties. I think experience is what's needed, and I think they can follow as opposed to lead. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Henry. Our next question, candidates. Rebuttal. Sorry. Yes, Colin, yes.
Someone reached out to me, it was his first federal election, and he claimed that he had reached out to every party and no one had responded back to him. I think I was the only one that responded back to him, so this idea that we're responding to emails and writing letters to and from people, he told me that it was 4 months before he even heard the first response, and he's been waiting 2 years for the next. So that's from our current MP.
All right. Lily?
All candidates.
The point is, we're talking about responding to our youth, but no one is responding to them. When they ask a question, it doesn't take very long to write a response and say, give them their answer.
All right, candidates. I think we've discussed that question of, and we're going to move on to question number 9. Yes, Shannon, yes.
Not to interrupt the discussion that's candidly happening up here. But to get back to just also to put into perspective, when we're talking about youth, we also have to ensure that youth have the ability to have a living wage. Minimum wage doesn't cover anything for them anymore unless they're living with mom and dad, and we're subsidizing the things that they do. So I know the NDP have had conversations about lowering the voting age to ensure that those youth that are going to be making up the populace going forward have a seat at the table. And I do believe that they all have great ideas that they should bring forward, and we should be listening to our youth more often.
All right. Thank you, candidates. I think we're ready to move on to the next question. Here we go. Where do you personally stand, candidates, on the issue of a woman's ability to choose in relation to her health versus potential legislative control in issues like abortion? We begin with Shannon this time.
Sounds like it's going to be a little bit swayed, this answer that we're going to be giving. So I believe in that everybody should have autonomy over their own bodies. I don't want anybody, and I don't think anybody in this room wants someone to tell you what to do with your body, and I don't really want anybody to tell me what to do with my body. So I don't necessarily believe that that's a discussion where personal views should be coming into play. The NDP have always backed a woman's right to choose and reproductive rights, and I think that we need to maintain that. Body autonomy should be the most important thing, and I'm sure that a lot of the times these conversations that happen, and as a woman who's also a mother, who's a sister, who's a daughter, and who has daughters, I don't believe that I have a say in what my children choose to do with their bodies, just as I don't believe the government should be having a say in what people choose to do with their bodies. It's a choice. And personally, I believe in a woman's right to choose, and I believe in a woman's person to have, anybody to have autonomy over their own reproductive rights and their own bodies.
Thank you, Shannon. Leslyn?
I believe in respect. I am pro-life, and I wish that people respect my right to be pro-life, and I respect those who are pro-choice. That's my answer. Thank you.
Thank you, Leslyn. Colin?
I don't believe that government or anyone has the right to choose how someone else for decisions with their own body. It's not our place to make that decision. I know our MP has a different point of view as she voted against a woman's right to choose for for her own choice for her own body, and it's in Parliament. I looked it up. No, you know what? We looked it up. No. We posted it out. Is
this a rebuttal?
Which vote are you talking about? You don't even know how I voted on particular
all
issues.
of your votes are available online
Right.
on Parliament of Canada.
I think we could just have a rebuttal from Leslyn, and then we'll move on.
I don't know why this man thinks that he could speak for me, but I can speak for myself. My position is very, very clear. I am pro-life, and I respect those who are pro-choice. What Liberals have done is that they have created demonization over this issue. They've used it to get votes. They've turned Canadians against each other. They're masters at doing that, and I will not allow that to happen. I can show him respect if he can show me respect. His opinion is no more greater and more important than my opinion, but he should not be putting words into my mouth.
All right, we're going to move on,
I don't
candidates.
appreciate a man.
We're no more rebuttals. One more. Last.
I would like to rebut. I am just pointing out the facts of voting history is all I'm doing. I would never assume to decide anyone else's position. I would never assume to put words in your mouth. I am just stating facts on voting history. You can look them up yourself.
All right. All right, folks. We're just going to move on in the for the sake of time, and moving on to our next speaker, Lily.
The body inside your body is not your body. Reproductive rights end once you have reproduced. Then you have created a new human being, and that human being is entitled to their human rights. And life is the primary human right. Without life, no other right has a meaning. Life is to be valued and respected at all stages of human development. The CHP is the only federal party with a policy protecting all human life. Abortion is not a charter-protected right. Reproduction is. But once you've reproduced, that right is over. You've already participated in that. I hope you had fun. Abortion should be defunded, not defended. The CHP would recognize the personhood of the preborn human. Thank you.
Thank you, Lily. Henry.
The People's Party of Canada wants that Canada joins the rest of the civilized world and have some kind of law to limit abortion. Currently, there isn't one. The policy the PPC advocates uses a trimester approach, where in the last trimester, no abortions should be allowed, and with an increasing level of allowability the earlier in the pregnancy. Thank you.
Thank you. Rebuttal, Shannon?
That the last trimester of life, if we're talking about gestational age, a fetus isn't viable pretty much until they talk about 21 to 23 weeks, possibly up to 24 weeks. So there is no such thing as abortion in the last trimester. So having this conversation and using this rhetoric, in my opinion, is not responsible conversation. And I understand when we're talking about this belief system that abortion in the last trimester actually exists, it does not. So let's just get our facts straight. If we want to have a conversation about it afterwards, I am more than willing to stand here and have a conversation with you about last trimester termination of pregnancies.
All right. Moving on to Nate. Thank you, Shannon. Nate.
That's no problem. I do not have a uterus or ovaries. Women's health is public health, period. Thank you.
All right. Next question, candidates. What is your party's view on gun control? How specifically would you approach getting illegal guns off the street, and what allowances would you provide for law-abiding hunters? This round, we begin with Leslyn.
Well, thank you for the question. I think that essentially we need to focus on criminals and not law-abiding firearms owners. Farmers, hunters, and sports shooters are not criminals. The liberal gun confiscation regime targets law-abiding firearms owners and lets criminals go free. Under the Carney Liberals, the murder rate has gone up 20% compared to 8% under Harper. A conservative government will focus on reducing crime, will focus on criminals, will focus on getting illegal guns off the streets, will stop gun smuggling at the borders by providing law enforcement with Border Patrol officers and with the resources that they need to do their jobs. We will also repeal the Bill C-21 and the May 2020 OIC.
So the Liberal government's not coming after your shotguns. We're not coming after your hunting rifles. They're trying to buy back assault rifles and ghost guns to get them off the streets, because you don't need an assault rifle to go hunting. I know that. I have friends who hunt. I've gone with them. But you do need to get them off the streets, because those are the type of guns that serious crimes and very devastating crimes can be the result of when these guns are out on the streets. And you might have it safely secured, locked up, and very responsible with it, but these are not the type of guns that we need, not for the type of sport that we're using. So we're not, again, we're not coming after your shotguns or your rifles, just those guns that, like assault rifles.
Thank you, Colin.
The CHP supports the right of peaceful, law-abiding citizens to own and use firearms for hunting, sports shooting, and self-defense. Violent crime is the problem, and efforts to curtail violence and loss of life should be directed at perpetrators, not at law-abiding gun owners. When guns are outlawed, only outlaws will have guns. Gun control and the disarming of the citizenry preceded Hitler's Nazi regime, the Communist Soviet Union, as well as the bloody regimes of Fidel Castro, Mao Zedong, and Pol Pot. The plague of school shootings and multiple murder-suicides across the country is not due to the increase in firearm ownership, but to the decrease in morality, family stability, church attendance, and personal dignity. Antisocial behavior and mental illness manifesting in acts of violence parallel the increase in broken homes and divorce, the prevalence of mind-altering drugs, and the frequent exposure to violent and sexually degrading content in media. An educational model that rejects the notion of a creator and mocks the concept of absolute moral values gives rise to a sense of purposelessness and isolation. Guns are problematic because the damage can be done in such a short period of time, but knives, hammers, cars can also become weapons of destruction. Only by returning to a social order that honors moral behavior, rewards self-control, places value on respect for human life, and the supremacy of God can we hope to reduce the incidence of murder.
The People's Party of Canada is for the freedom to own firearms, and that the people accept responsibility for gun ownership, and that any change in legislation should be passed by Parliament and not by an act of Cabinet or the RCMP, as has happened. Thank you.
Thank you, Henry. And Nate?
First of all, the Greens would scrap the gun buyback program. It's a failed policy that they've put in there. Criminals don't return weapons of any kind. They wouldn't even return a knife to you if you asked them to, unless it's in your back. I worked in an industry where I made prohibited firearms for our military services in NATO and police forces all around the world. So I know the destruction that these guns can do. There's a saying out there that goes, guns don't kill people, people kill people. I say guns don't kill people, ammunition kills people. I think we need stricter regulations on ammunition. You should not be able to buy a round of ammunition that you don't have a gun registered for that type of ammunition to be used. And as far as the orange man down south goes with his claiming we send fentanyl down there, look at the criminal guns that come across that border. Why aren't we making him pay for the victims' families' funerals when they have to bury their children? Think about that. Thank you.
Thank you, Nate. And Shannon, your last comment on this.
So I grew up in a household where hunting was kind of an everyday thing. I think being out in Haldimand, Norfolk, I was raised on my father's on venison, on moose meat, on all of those things. So I'm sure the NDP and the Green Party agree that the buyback program is a failed attempt. And hunters, exactly, when you're hunting and you have rifles, we're not after them. The NDP aren't after them. But when we're talking about criminals and we're talking about crime, it wasn't the NDP that cut 1,100 border jobs. So, so that's where when we're talking about how we're going to get there. We do need to strengthen our borders, and we do, but Nate's 100% right. Criminals don't hand in their guns. All we're doing is keeping honest people, making them have to be more honest, and these are individuals that are going to be handing their guns to anyone. So I think both the other parties that I can say, it's a failed attempt, and it just makes people feel like they have to give up their hobbies and their livelihoods. And I think we need to ensure that when we're talking about responsible gun ownership, that it's responsible gun ownership and not just gun ownership by criminals, and making sure, and that's not going to be by rifles, I can tell you that right now.
Thank you, Shannon. We have a rebuttal.
On the responsibility part, we do need to increase our gun safety training. I have dogs, and there are certain times of the year when I will not go for walks in the woods because you never know if there's someone who is not well trained out there with a gun. So we do need to increase our gun safety as well.
Thank you, Billy. Rebuttal, Shannon?
Responsible gun owner already has to take a course. They have to prove that they are well trained in how to use their firearms. So I don't necessarily know if that's going to help get the ghost guns and the illegal firearms that are coming across the border due to the firing of our border security. Sorry, I just don't think that's the way to go.
All right, thank you. Well, candidates, we have one final question coming up. The evening has flown by, but the final question, it's quite relevant to the fact that we're here today being televised and we're online with this lively debate. Here is the question. With the prospect of the CBC being defunded and in light of recent 51st state rhetoric, how will you protect Canada's cultural identity? We're talking music, art, literature, film, news, if there is no public broadcaster to showcase Canadian works. And we begin with Colin.
Well, I think the Liberal Party, I know we're not going to be defunding the CBC. We need the CBC. I grew up on the CBC. It's our cultural identity. We need to support the arts. It is what makes us who we are. I mean, it's unbiased news. It provides us with the information that we need. And it's vetted. And despite what some feel,
Continue.
despite what some feel, journalists are held to the same standards as any other profession. If they're not performing their profession well, they won't have their jobs. It's the same as if I weren't teaching my students properly. I wouldn't have my job.
All right. Thank you, Colin. Lily?
So yes, the Liberals need CBC, but Canadians do not. The CBC costs taxpayers $1.6 billion each year while promoting policies and values which many Canadians disagree with. It misinforms voters about their choices, giving biased information on the parties it promotes and failing to report on others. Publicly funded media must not be opinionated or biased. Rather, it must report fairly on all views. Public opinion about government policies regarding abortion, assisted suicide, gender issues, education, religion, pharmaceuticals, and foreign affairs have been shaped by the editorial board. CBC should be defunded and made to compete like other channels for advertising and viewer contributions. If it is to continue at taxpayers' expense, a government ombudsman must be appointed to hold it accountable to all taxpayers for its programming choices, which should reflect the diversity of Canadian thought and opinion, not just the thoughts of the Liberals.
Thank you, Lily. Henry?
A nation must be based on a sense of belonging, of participating in a common national project, and sharing the same values. In the past, immigrants gradually integrated into Canadian society. They kept something of their culture of origin too, but this flavored their Canadian identity that enriched our society. Today, through official multiculturalism, it seems as though any other culture is valued over ours, and funded so. Let's end the funding of other cultural events, not banning them by any means, simply not using taxpayer monies to fund some South African or some South American festival. So we can do it without the Multiculturalism Act and instead promote the integration of immigrants into Canadian society. Thank you.
I agree with what Lily said about an ombudsman to be involved with the CBC to watch their spending. Do I think they should have all their funding cut directly? Absolutely not. CBC provides, I'm surprised the response here being part of a rural community here. There's people that don't have internet. There's people that don't have cable television. They rely on the CBC for their local news, not their national news, not opinion pieces. If we lose this and there's an emergency in an area like that, people might not have a clue. Myself, I stay away from it. I listen to radio most of the time. But, we have a bunch of people working cameras here, working booths, and work for the press here. You're almost saying, where can they find a job at? I'm kind of baffled by it. The attack against media, mainstream media, that was brought into a lexicon by that orange man that we all don't like right now. Come on. Guys, that's people's livelihoods you're talking about. Seriously, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Nate. Shannon?
kind of hard to go after Nate when he says a comment like that, but that's 100% true. We're sitting here talking about public media. Now, the NDP are not looking to defund CBC. CBC is something that has been ingrained in all of us, and that is true. But we also know that I'm pretty certain that Pierre Poilievre sent a letter himself to Elon Musk on Twitter asking them to have the CBC listed as a media outlet that is biased. So when we start having American influence even in our media, we've got a problem. And we see when we see down in the South what's happening with regards to the Fox News versus the CNN versus the MSNBC. I don't want to see that, and I believe the CBC needs to exist, and I believe that we need to continue to fund it. And I want to make sure that the people that are doing the job of televising this debate still have access to their jobs. And media needs to be accessible to everyone. And there's a lot of people, like Nate said, who don't have access to satellite or internet or any of those things, so they rely on things like CBC Radio. I mean, Saturday night hockey games, they're on CBC Radio. Yeah.
Well, the CBC, there are functions for it. In rural Canada, when I traveled around Canada, and in rural Canada, that's sometimes all they have, and so that's an important function. In addition, Radio Canada, the French network, is very, very important part of our cultural heritage. And so I would think that we would keep those two aspects. However, media has changed a lot. We now have a lot of independent creators who are self-funding. Why should a company have $1.6 billion worth of taxpayer-funded money when many taxpayers are disgruntled with the type of biased media that's coming out of that network? Many taxpayers do not believe that they're a balanced media outlet. And so we could ask questions about them returning back to their public broadcaster function for which they were originally created. And that may mean that they have to self-fund and raise money through the way that they used to do it, through teletrons and different fundraising mechanisms. Many independent producers are doing that themselves, and with social media, there are a lot of independent content creators that are surviving, and so a company like CBC could survive with a two-tiered system, not just being funded by taxpayers.
Thank you, Leslyn. At this time, I would like to thank our candidates, ladies and gentlemen. Lily Egging, Christian Heritage Party of Canada. Henry Geisler, PPC. Nate Hawkins, Green Party of Canada. Shannon Horner, Shepherd, New Democratic Party. Leslyn Lewis, Conservative Party of Canada. And Colin Walsh, the Liberal Party of Canada. I would like to thank Gillian Taylor and Caitlin Clark, co-owners of the Haldimand Press, that brought you this event tonight. And in the name of local media, may she always reign. It is so important to democracy that we have our local media to be informed voters. I would like to thank the Caledonia Lions, our host for tonight. I'd like to thank Windecker Road Films, Graham Bashu and his team, Cornerstone Realtors Association, and the Caledonia Chamber of Commerce, our sponsors. Thank you all for attending both online and here at the Lions Community Center. And please remember the role of our local news media during these challenging times. It does help make democracy work. So thank you, candidates. Thank you all. And we have our closing remarks from all our candidates at this time. Let's begin with Lily this time.
We are told that all worldviews, lifestyles, and behaviors are equally moral and valid. None are wrong. If this is true, then honor killing is honorable, and cannibalism is just another way to eat. Thus, all worldviews, lifestyles, and behaviors are not equally moral and valid. Some are wrong. The question then is, what will be Canada's moral standard? Some say that the moral standard should be determined by the majority. Others say minority. The problem is that either will fluctuate with time. What is immoral today will be moral tomorrow. Human morals are constantly changing. At the Christian Heritage Party, we assert that the moral standard must be unchanging and founded in the supremacy of God as laid out in the Bible. This is consistent with Canada's Christian heritage, as well as the preamble to the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms, whereas Canada is founded upon principles that recognize the supremacy of God and the rule of law. Life. We assert that life is the primary human right. Without life, no other right has meaning. Life is to be valued and respected at all stages of human development. All humans should be entitled to their human rights. We are the only federal party with the policy protecting life from conception to natural death. Abortion and MAID are not charter-protected rights and should be defunded. CHP Canada fights for all Canadians, not just the ones deemed to have value. Family. We encourage strong family growth by promoting parental childcare through the reduction of taxes, cost of living, and price of housing. We would take steps to reduce broken homes, restore a sense of hope and purpose, and make stay-at-home parenting affordable. CHP fights for a strong family foundation. Freedom. We believe that Canadians must have the freedom to peacefully express their beliefs and thoughts without fear of persecution or prosecution. If we do not have the freedom to speak up and scrutinize public policy, we will soon be subject to tyranny. CHP fights for freedom. Life, family, and freedom are worth fighting for. In this election, I urge you, do not waste your vote by voting for a party whose morals you do not agree with. Vote according to your beliefs, values, and morals. Vote for a party you can stand next to when you stand before God. Vote from your faith, not from your fears. We have a God who is strong and mighty, and his purpose will stand if only we stand with him. I am Lily Eggink, bringing respect for life and truth to Canadian politics. You can find my contact information on the candidates page of chp.ca. Thank you all for attending tonight.
How much time do I have? 3 minutes, thank you. Okay. The People's Party of Canada firmly believes that the dismantling of the supply management system is the key to unlock the trade dispute with the United States of America. We didn't talk about that tonight, but we have to put everything on the table in order to negotiate with the Americans. It is imperative that we not fight with our neighbor. Currently, the Liberals and the Conservatives both foolishly beat the trade war drums, imposing counter tariffs that only tax Canadians and provoke the Americans. Mr. Bernier said in 2016 during his leadership bid for the Conservative Party that supply management was wasteful, costly for consumers, hindering producers from growth and other markets abroad, and fundamentally against free trade. He said this knowing that there were a lot of dairy farmers in his riding, and indeed it probably cost him his seat and the leadership of the Conservative Party in 2017. The political pundits called that leadership race for Bernier, but then some extra 10,000 seemingly temporary new Conservative Party members were added last minute to the voting roster to deny Mr. Bernier the leadership. And the ballots were immediately destroyed, even though the published difference in the vote was less than 2%. So the Conservative Party showed themselves for what they are. I'll call them cheaters. Mr. Bernier called the party corrupt and left it to form the People's Party of Canada. Maxime Bernier is not your average politician. He actually has integrity. He stands by his political beliefs. In 2019, when he called for drastically reducing immigration, he was called racist. During the COVID crisis, he maintained that we must not be coerced into vaccine mandates and vaccine passports. We must not be hindered in our freedom of speech, even when it was inconvenient to the powers that be. He has not changed his stance. And look at that, he was proven right about COVID. And now his stance on immigration doesn't seem that radical either. Well, it still does to those who can't see the forest for the trees. Mr. Bernier worked in business and finance for 19 years before entering politics. And I understand that farming is a business, and it seems to me that given a level playing field, Maxime has the faith that the Canadian farmer can compete and succeed in international trade and agriculture. He's not against you. The People's Party is not against you. We are for the people of Canada. Thank you.
Thank you, Henry. Nate?
So being a Green Party member, it's a little bit of a different game. You're actually allowed to use your own opinion and voice. You don't have to toe any party lines. Greens like to work across the floor. You know, we want everyone to get along in the House of Commons so that, you know, we can concentrate on getting work done instead of bickering back and forth all the time and slogans. And guys, it's my first experience in politics ever. And there's been times, I'm not going to lie, where I've been thinking, what am I doing? Trying to collect candidate signatures was a 3-day task for me. My wife came out with me the first day to be my witness, and she got home, she sat down, we ate, she got up, she passed out in the hallway and threw up because of the stress levels of trying to just get candidate signatures. I wasn't asking for anyone's vote or pledge to vote. And this has been going off across the country. This isn't just me. It's probably happened to some people up here. I had people getting right up in my face. Why would I sign that if you're a Green Party member? Because I want to participate in our democracy. Why is that a bad thing? That shouldn't be frowned upon. Now, I'm not saying there was a lot of people like that. There's a lot of great people. The part that saddened me the most was when people that didn't agree with certain party up here had to whisper to me because they felt afraid in their own darn community to talk about their political views. That hurt. Now, that being said, I want to end on a positive note. And recently, you in Haldimand and Norfolk, you elected an MPP, independent MPP. I believe she was a very good choice for this community. She's got a lot of work to do. And whoever up here wins this MP position better be there to help support her with the trying times coming up as much as I would. Thank you, Haldimand. You've made this a wonderful experience. I'll be back. I actually hear you might be looking for a mayor. Call me. Thank you. Sorry, I had a couple of seconds. I had a couple of seconds left there. I just want to add, yes, I might bring some levity to this, but I am serious about Canada and Canadian values and culture, 100%. Canada strong, true, north, and free forever.
I will admit that Nathan's right. As coming in as somebody who's not a career politician, that's in an industry that's a heavy manufacturing industry, it's a little daunting to be up front in these debates and putting yourself on display. So I do appreciate that everybody that's at this table has made this process a little less intimidating. We all know that when we talk about who is going to stand up for Canadians, the NDP have and always will be the ones who hold those in power accountable. And that's all I'm asking a shot to do, is to ensure that the voices of Haldimand and Norfolk are brought to Ottawa by a person who lives in the riding, who knows our unique diversity in this riding, who has spent their time here, who has grown up here, from one side of this riding to another. As we grow and we get older, we have people coming from other parts of the province moving to our wonderful riding, and I think that what needs to happen is all of the voices, whether they're young or they're older, doesn't matter what ethnic background they come from, I think all of those voices have a say in how we in Haldimand Norfolk live and make sure our voices get to Ottawa. If anybody knows me that's in the room or knows me that's online, if there's one thing that I've always done, it's ensure that I've always advocated for those who aren't able to advocate for themselves. I've done that for my daughter's entire life. I've done that while I've been involved in the union movement. Advocating for people who can't advocate for themselves should be the fundamental of why somebody gets involved into politics. And I would ensure that I would do that no matter what. I would work tirelessly for this riding. I do believe that there is value to having a voice that believes that we all deserve to have health care, we all deserve to retire in dignity, we all deserve to have a social safety net that's in place so that when our jobs are torn out from underneath us by companies that may be moving to the States, or that we find ourselves in a situation where our health has made it so that we can no longer work, we need those protections in place, and we need NDP people in the House of Commons to ensure that those that are leading this country are ensuring they're doing things right. I'm not here to do what's easy or what's comfortable, because sometimes doing what's right is definitely not what's comfortable or easy. But I will say this, I will fight tirelessly for the residents of Haldimand, Norfolk, and I'll make sure that if you need access to something, I will do everything in my power that you get that. Thank you very much.
So after a decade of Liberal leadership, I'm hearing from residents all over these two counties that Canadians and residents of Haldimand, Norfolk are hurting. Millions are turning to food banks. Here at home, we have one of the world's greatest agricultural sectors, yet 1 in 6 residents in Haldimand, Norfolk are facing food insecurity. The dream of home ownership is fading, and as I stated earlier, it costs, to qualify for a home, an individual or a family has to earn over $200,000 to qualify for an average home in Haldimand, Norfolk. Crime is also at a historic high. We've seen opioid deaths are up over 200%. Under the Trudeau-Carney Liberals, we've seen massive tax hikes. Farmers are being punished with red tape and excessive carbon taxes. Resource projects have been blocked, and we have not been able to get our products to market. Canada has the 3rd largest accessible oil reserves on the planet, yet it was blocked through bills like Bill C-69 and Bill C-48. We need to be able to develop our natural resources and use that to strengthen our economy. We need to strengthen our industries. Now, with Trump tariffs hitting our economy, we have been left in a situation of vulnerability. And let's be very clear about what has happened. This mess was created largely by poor policies over the last 9 years. And the truth is, if the Liberals created this problem, I don't believe we can trust them to fix it. It is like trusting an arsonist to put out the fire. But we have a choice. We can see more decline, or we can opt for a brighter future. Under the Pierre Poilievre Conservative team, we will restore hope. We will put people first once again. We will stand up for Canada, and we will stand up to Trump. We will defend our industries, our borders, our farmers, our workers, and our sovereignty. We will unleash Canada's locked-up potential and get our resources to international market. We will cut taxes by 15%. We will axe the carbon tax for everyone. We will support our seniors and our veterans. And we will restore hope to Canada. Canada is indeed at a crossroads, and I believe that we have great hope and promise if we put Haldimand, Norfolk, the families, and our countries first.
So thank you to everyone here tonight and those at home for listening tonight, and for caring about the future of our community. Over the past few weeks, I've met with families from Langton to Cortland, through Delhi, Simcoe, Port Rowan, Hagersville, Caledonia, Cayuga, and Dunnville. I've heard from farmers facing rising costs, seniors worried about access to care, and young people wondering if they can afford to stay in the place they love. What I've heard is clear. Our community wants unity, not division. You want real representation, someone who shows up, listens, and takes your voice to Ottawa, not someone who disappears between elections. Our values, respect, care for one another, and a belief in honest work are what hold us together, and they're being tested. Around the world, including just across the border, we see leaders like Donald Trump trying to stoke fear, divide people, and bully their way through diplomacy. But that's not how Canadians lead. We need an MP who understands how high the stakes are, someone who will protect our sovereignty, strengthen our trade relationships, defend our democracy, and ensure that Canada remains a global leader in peace, prosperity, and progress. I've been part of this community for more than a decade, as a teacher, a father, a coach, and a neighbor. I'm not running because I want to rise above this community, but because I want to rise with it. So on April 28th, I'm asking for your trust, not just to be your representative, but to be your partner in building something better. Let's raise our expectations for leadership, for honesty, for access. Let's choose a path that lifts us all up together. Thank you.
Thank you all, whether you're veteran politicians or newcomers to the game. Thank you for stepping up on behalf of all of us here tonight. Thank you. Good luck in the days, weeks, and months and years ahead. On behalf of Cornerstone Association of Realtors, the Chamber of Commerce, and of course, the Haldimand Press. Thank you, audience. You did a great job, audience. And thank you, everyone watching online. This is what local news is all about. Get out and vote. Don't forget. Thank you and good night from the Caledonia Lions Community Center.